Hello, Erica, and hello to our dear viewers. I am attorney Tracia RA, and I graduated from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. And recently, I passed the bar examination, and I am very grateful to be here with you today. So today, I am going to share with you some facts about the Republic Act number 10533, or also known as the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013. So the main point of this act is the implementation of the K-12 curriculum. So I guess you are all familiar with this. So this aims to strengthen the educational curriculum in the country and also by standardizing our educational system through additional years in the basic education. So, who will be under the provision of this act? So the provision of this IRR should primarily apply to all public and private basic educational institutions and learning centers. This IRR should also apply to higher education institutions, or the HEIs, technical vocational institutions, the TVIs, duly recognized organizations acting as teacher education institutions, or the TEIs, and the foundations. So in section 4, we have there the definitions of their terms used in the Act. The first one is the Act itself. So the Act refers to the Republic Act number 10533, or entitled as an Act enhancing the Philippine basic education system by strengthening its curriculum and increasing the number of years for basic education, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes, otherwise known as the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013. So the second one is the Learning Center. So what is the Learning Center according to this act? This refers to a physical space to house learning resources and facilities of a learning program for out-of-school youth and adults. This may also be referred to as Community Learning Center, or authorized or recognized by the DepEd. So aside from school, we have the learning center to be held the learning process of the students or the out of school youth. So we have the third ones. The third one is the learner. Learner refers to a pupil or a student, or to a learner in the alternative learning system, or the ALS. The next one is the mother language or first language, or also known as the L1. This refers to the language or languages first learned by a child, which he or she identifies with, is identified as a native language user of by others, which he or she knows best or uses most. This includes Filipino Sign Language used by individuals with pertinent disabilities. So I think we are all familiar with the L1, or the language 1. It is our first and foremost language being used or being introduced to. So the last term is the non-DepEd public school. So what is the non-DepEd public school? This refers to a public school offering basic education operated by an agency of the national government other than the DepEd, or by a local government unit. So it is possible pala to run a school not operated by the DepEd but operated by a certain agency or the national government, and or by the local government unit. Okay, someone asked me if it is a compulsory to have the child enrolled in basic education. So, I will answer this question, this queries, according to the Republic Act number 10533. So, let's focus on the section 7. It says there that it shall be compulsory for every parent or guardian or other persons having custody of a child to enroll such child in basic education, irrespective of learning delivery modes and systems, until its completion, as provided for by existing laws, rules, and regulations. So definitely, it is a compulsory to enroll a child into basic education. Diversity is something very common in the Philippines. That is why this act promotes inclusiveness regardless of your culture, traits, and your race. Stated in the Section 8 is the inclusiveness of enhanced basic education. In furtherance of Section 3 of the Act, inclusiveness of enhanced basic education shall mean the implementation of programs designed to address the physical, intellectual, psychosocial, and cultural needs of learners, which shall include but shall not be limited to the following. The first one is the programs for the gifted and talented. These shall refer to the comprehensive programs for the gifted and talented learners in all levels of basic education. In elementary education, we have the SPED program that is intended to promote, preserve, and enhance the gifts and talents of diverse learners. While in secondary education, we have special programs in the arts, science, technology, and engineering, and we also have in sports and so on. So the next program is the programs for learners with disabilities. These shall refer to the comprehensive programs designed for learners with disabilities, which may be a home, school center, or community-based. Education is not limited to PWDs, but stated in this act that there should be programs for these individuals. It includes teaching the deaf and mute to use sign languages, teaching the basic survival needs to children with Down syndrome, and other activities that will enable them to feel that they are included in our society. So we also have the Madrasa program for our Muslim brothers and sisters. So these shall refer to the comprehensive program using the Madrasa curriculum prescribed by the Department of Education in coordination with the Commission on Muslim Filipinos for Muslim learners in public and private schools. So, here, they teach us a set of curricula from the process of memorizing the Quran through reading, reciting, and writing to higher studies in Islamic theology. So, Muslims are not being set aside under this act, but they are actually given provision to practice the education and at the same time their culture. So the next one is the Indigenous Peoples or the IP Education Program. So these shall refer to the program that supports education initiative undertaken through formal, non-formal, and informal modalities which emphasis on any of but not limited to the key areas of the indigenous knowledge systems and practices in community history, indigenous languages, indigenous learning system or the ILS, and community life cycle-based curriculum and assessment, educational goals, aspirations, and competencies specific to the indigenous cultural community or the ICC, engagement of elders and other community members in the teaching learning process, in assessment and management of the initiative, recognition and continuing practice of the community's ILS, and the rights and responsibilities of the ICCs. It is a reality that not every indigenous people are being introduced to education or have the chance to be educated. That is why there are programs like these to teach them on how to read and write, and also to provide them with the basic education which they really need to have. One strategy or program being implemented is the hiring and giving of item to indigenous people teachers for them to encourage IPs to have education, because it is actually implemented because of the language matters, because only IP's teacher could understand IP students, right? So in terms of language, they are being compatible, and each indigenous group of people has their own culture as well and traditions, and this is also being promoted and being practiced under this act. Now we also have programs for learners under difficulties difficult circumstances rather. So these shall refer to the timely and responsive programs for learners under difficult circumstances, such as but not limited to the geographic isolation, the chronic illness, displacement due to armed conflict, urban resettlement, or disasters, child abuse, and child labor practices. So, education is being brought to far-flung areas in the Philippines or in our country. Those learners who has difficulties in terms of their living are being addressed under this program. For example, the government gives attention to these people and financial assistance to the learners under this category because actually it is stated in this act to also provide programs for those learners under difficult circumstances. Okay, so I would also wanted to share with you some facts about acceleration in the basic education or in the Enhanced Basic Education Act. So, according to Section 9, acceleration of learners in public and private basic educational institutions shall be allowed, consistent with DepEd rules and regulations. It should be allowed, but also we have to refer with the DepEd rules and regulations as well. So, when should a child be able to accelerate? Since the shift of K-12 in the Philippines, education system, colleges and universities are now only accepting senior high school graduates, pushing informal and non-formal students to ease back to formal schooling. So, meaning if you are under the old curriculum, sometimes it nagiging conflict siya. So, you have to go back to formal schooling to have the senior high school or to have the certification of senior high school. Okay, but before proceeding to enrollment, these students must first take the PEPT. So, if you are, if you wish to not to go back to the formal school, you could take the PEPT or the Philippine Educational Placement Test. So, in order for you to proceed to college, you have to take first this examination. So, what is the PEPT? PEPT is the Philippine Educational Placement Test under the Accreditation and Equivalency Program or of Executive Order Number 733, Series of 1981. It is an exam administered by the Department of Education through the Bureau of Education Assessment, and PEPT intends to assess homeschool children or out-of-school youth who plans to re-enter a traditional or the formal schooling at a certain level. So, if they pass the examination, they could accelerate to higher grade level or to college that they supposed to belong to. So, the main factors are that being considered here is actually the age of the learners. Okay, so I think that will be all. Miss Erica, thank you for inviting me, and to all the viewers, I hope you have learned something from my presentation. Thank you and God bless us all.